Hey everyone, welcome to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. You guys are listening to the Going Bold Wednesday. We are bold, bold, bold. And this is the Boy and Girl Show. And I have my good friend here with me, Dr. Christopher Salute.
Cece, it's been forever. How have you been?
I know. I bet I look younger, don't
You
I?
do. You absolutely. Absence makes the heart grow fonder, Cece. And so I was already fond of you, so I'm even more fond at this moment.
Oh, you're
So
full of it.
I'm just
But
sharing.
we'll
What's that?
take it. You're full of it, but we'll take it.
Flattery will get me everywhere. I'm just going to share while you're hanging out and introing the topic today. I'm going to just share this with a couple of groups and share it with a couple of pages.
Okay.
So give me a second. We're on Instagram Live as well.
Yeah, that sounds great. Well, so if you guys don't know, Dr. Christopher Salute is an MBA, a PhD, a CEO, and a life and relationship coach, if I can talk.
We love acronyms. We just like
know he's got it going on. And then for me, I'm just a Doyenne of relationships. I do divorce, dating, and life coach.
You are not just anything. You have there are universities that give out degrees for life experience. So if you were to be in one of those, you would definitely, without a doubt, have a couple of degrees behind your name.
Oh yeah, like the stupid, the stupid one. It's like, okay, forget it. We won't go there. I was going to say something about something bad about relationships, but we're not going there.
And if you're joining us from Instagram, you're hanging out with Cece and I live. We were talking about do long distance relationships work. It's something that Cece, I know you've been in some long distance relationships, and I guess before we talk about long distance relationships, we ought to probably want to define them. Before we even do that, let's talk about who this show is brought to you by. This show is brought to you by the Going Bold Wednesday, the Going Bold Network. It's also brought to you by Going Solo Media, as well as Bold Holdings, which includes Fabulous Magazine, Bold Magazine, That Professor Life Coaching. Any businesses you want to shamelessly plug, Cece?
Of course we have the Going. I thought I had a little thing in here, but I can't seem to find it. But yeah, we have the Going Solo Network, of course. Mm-hmm. But the Going Bold, and I just want to touch on that a little bit, because the Going Bold is really an inspirational, site that we're trying to form here. And so we have the Going Bold Network, and we want to focus on, men's issues, which are very important to us. And then also, women's issues. So I think it's a very serious, of course, the Going Solo Network is too, but I think it's going to be a very serious, contender out there for everyone, because it's really going to touch on life issues and making that transformation in our lives to live a better life. And so,
it's all about, and feel free, Instagram folks, ask some questions like, what's up? I haven't seen you in a minute. For me, the Going Bold Network is about empowerment. And that's what bold, if you're just watching the show, if you found me in another way, most people already knew me from, whatever I was doing before this, but, running all my plus size magazines, but, and I still own them. But the plus size magazines that I created, and this program that we're creating here, the message is still the same. It's being who you are. It's being bold. It's being yourself, and it's being unapologetic and brave. And I hate that people call fat women brave or whatever. Oh, you're so brave. No, I don't mean it like that. I mean, getting up in the morning is brave, and doing you is being brave. And so that's kind of what we're all about. So join us. We're going to be doing this every Wednesday, and we're expanding the network. So it's going to be exciting.
Yeah, I'm really thrilled with where we're going. But let's talk about this long distance relationship. Yes. I mean, my ex-husband and I, he lived in England and I lived in Florida. Okay. And I met him when he was on vacation. I used to tease him and say it was the most expensive vacation he was ever on. But we actually, he used to come over to the United States a lot because he did it for work, and he would fly into Chicago and then fly down to Florida to see me. And, he did put a great deal of effort into it. And that I do have to say that. And I think with long distance relationships, that's probably the number one thing, is you do have to put effort in it.
Ton of effort.
Maybe a little bit more. But we were married for 18 years. So just to give you the history of it, we dated separately in two different places for a year. Okay. And then he moved to Chicago and I moved up from Florida, and we lived together for a year, and then we were married. So yeah. So it can work.
So what defines a long distance relationship? That's my question. Like, how do you define a long distance relationship?
Some people would say if it takes you over 5 minutes to drive in a car, it's long distance.
Yeah. It's so funny because in Vegas, for example, so especially if you're listening on Instagram, hello, in Vegas, for example, because a lot of my friends are from Vegas, they do this thing. It's like the weirdest thing. I'm from New York, right? If you can't tell from the overly Italian accent and the fact that, my hair's straight up. But so in New York, it's like, oh, thank you, Terry. Terry says great topic. In New York, it's going to take you minimum 35, 45 minutes to get to a date. It's going to, anybody, if you're in the town over, you're minimum 25 minutes away. Here in Vegas, the whole city for now, until, hopefully you Californians get out of my city, because you're making traffic crazy. But, you can do door to door from one end of the city to the other, from like Henderson to North Vegas, you can do in an hour. And so when you're going on a date with someone, that's the funniest thing. When I first got here and I started to date locally, people were like, well, how far are you? And I was like, oh, I'm here. And they would go, oh, that's 30 minutes. Who's going to drive to who? And I was like, I'll drive to you. Like, who cares? You know what I mean? But you're right. I think it depends on who you're talking to, right?
In this new virtual world, are long distance relationships more common?
The answer is, I've done some research on that. And the very short answer is yes. And the longer answer is there's two factors at play that maybe we'll jump into after we talk a bit about how long distance relationships works, or we can jump into it now. What do you think, Cece?
Yeah, I mean, for me, long distance is if I can't easily kiss you, I'm not interested. That's how I look at it. If I can't, I don't mind driving 30 minutes or, you driving 30 minutes, that's, whatever. We'll figure it out. But if I'm not going to be able to kiss you, I'm just not interested. I'm not interested anymore. And maybe back then I would have been, but not now. So
now Shariva says, what's that? Shariva's on our Instagram. And by the way, if you're on Instagram, we love to hear from you. Make sure to jump on to either the Facebook page or the YouTube channel. They're all on my Shorebee, so feel free to jump on after that. But Shariva says, I think it's all about effort and communication. If we don't have time to devote to communication, it will not work. So I want to touch on that for a second. And I also saw some folks said hi to you, Cece. I think Mana said hello.
Yeah.
It looks like Terry said hello.
Amen.
So, I agree with you 1000%. Kiki says, or Kimmy says, I agree with Cece if she can't kiss you, which is fun. Now, Kimmy, wait a second, because I don't know. I don't want to. So Kim and I are friends, but we flirted for like half a minute from Pennsylvania to New York. I couldn't have kissed you, so I don't know.
Well, we could flirt. It doesn't mean that we're not flirting. It just means a relationship.
This was years ago. And now we're friends. So Shariva says, I think it's all about effort and communication. It won't work, if you don't have time to devote. But I think that's anything, right? And definitely with long distance relationships. But here's the thing, right? Whether you're in a long distance relationship or not, the amount that you communicate with your potential partner is going to make or break, because challenges exist anywhere, right? So, people have known me also to be in open relationships and doing the poly thing and that kind of stuff. Brings its own set of relationship issues that you need to communicate with, right? Number one, long distance brings its own set of communication things to really to deal with. I'm also a bit of a workaholic. There are some communication issues. I know, Cece, you've got kids. There are some things you have to communicate. So agreed 1000%. But I also think that any relationship is going to bring a barrier. What do you think, Cece?
Well, yeah, but it's a whole different game when it's long distance, because there's a tremendous amount of trust, when you're building that relationship. And because, when someone is close to you, they can kiss you, they can be physical with you. And that's great. You're able to create that bond, that intimate bond. But when you're at a distance, that every day of not seeing each other and other people get involved and things like that, it is much harder you truly do have to work at it. You truly do have to have that open communication. It's a lot easier now, because when I was doing it with my ex, I'm doing it with my ex, but when my ex and I were dating, it was before we had cell phones. I hate to say we didn't have cell phones. We didn't have internet. We didn't have video chat. We didn't have any of that. And we actually paid for our calls by the minute. So it was by the minute. It was expensive. He used to have $1,000 phone bills.
Stop.
$1,000 he would pay.
He put some heavy he did
the work. I mean, he truly did the work. But by doing that made me realize that he's in it, you know. Yeah. And of course I didn't want to, you know, do anything with anybody else because I felt that way. But ooh, that was an expensive event. But finally, at one time I said to him, don't you think we really need to get together because it'd be a whole lot cheaper?
Yeah. Well, now, there's two things to comment on. And before I comment on that, sorry, Instagram, I got to let you go.
Terry's laughing at me. Haha, long distance calls. Oh, she remembers. Ooh, good.
So Instagram, I'm gonna let you go. Y'all can join us right on my YouTube or right on Facebook. You see it on my Shoreby, so we'll see you in a second.
Yeah, come join us here so we can read your comments, talk to you.
Absolutely. Now I want to comment on that because back in the day, I was thinking about that the other day. I don't remember why I was thinking about that, but I was thinking about back in the day, right? Like, a phone call was kind of an event, though. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, like, he would call, and it would be a big thing to get his phone call. Yeah. He would call me at my night because, you know, we had a big, huge gap in the time. But the other thing he used to do, which I love, and I think that if we could do more of this, couples, it would be great. But he used to send me letters. And he was a beautiful writer. He was a beautiful writer. And he would send me these wonderful letters. And I actually kept every single one of them. I kept them in a box. And I just recently gave them to my son. I didn't even open to read them. So I hope there weren't any X-rated stuff in there. But I kept every single one because I was so touched because he did the work. He really did. And I'm, you know, I think that's why I fell in love with him, is because he really, really showed me, you know, even though it was difficult to be able to keep it going, you know.
Now, let me ask you, did you ever get together physically?
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry. Did you ever get together permanently physically?
I was young then, yes.
But did you all live together? Did he ever move to you?
Yeah, he would, when we were dating, Graham's laughing. Hey, don't be telling nobody, Graham. So when we were dating, he would fly here, right? And so he'd be like another vacation, but it was very expensive because he would have to pay for his own airfare, right? But he had air miles. Back in those days, they always give you a lot of air miles. And so he would fly here, but he'd have to stay in a hotel or whatever. And he couldn't stay with me because I had children. I wouldn't let him stay with me. So he got a hotel and everything. And it was great. It was really great.
This was after you had children.
Yeah, I had older children. So
this is not your original.
No, this is my last husband. Yeah. So I already had adult children. Yeah.
Got it.
I can't seem to get this to show the comments here. I don't know.
Oh, well, we saw Graham.
Yeah, I can get that one there.
I plead the fifth. And then Kim says, I'd love to get letters. So, you know, I love letters. I love letters. I love letters, right? I think, you know, an ex of mine who's now a friend, she used to call me the king of the she'd say I was the king of the email because I used to write long emails about, you know, just confessing my love. But then it was also pretty toxic because at the end I would write a really long email, like trying to keep us together. And she was like, yeah, you got to stop that. But that's kind of the equivalent of getting a letter. But letters and cards are the way to go, too.
Yeah. And I dated a guy here not too long ago I moved. So we ended up being further apart, and we were probably a good hour apart. And then he would send me cards all the time. And I love that.
Yeah. I love that too.
Say, Graham said here, I was in the Royal Navy for 14 and a half years, and letters and the occasional phone call mattered. Yeah. And then we had here, I tried to build a connection long distance than I have before, but for myself, I wanted the physical connection, and I felt it hard to communicate how alone I felt. And that, that is really true, because you get very lonely, and, we all want that physical, when you're building a relationship, you do want that physical part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if nothing more, that's why I said, if I can't kiss you, hug you, I just don't want to go there anymore. I don't want to do that.
You just did a long distance relationship. You did one that was a couple of hours, right? Between you and your
well, but we had started it previously. I mean, I don't think,
and then he moved.
And I moved. And so, and he was gracious enough to because my dad had moved out. And so I couldn't keep living where I was living, because it was a big place for both of us. So I had to move someplace smaller, and I wanted to come back over to Clearwater versus where I was living at.
Yeah.
But and so, but he was gracious enough to drive. He drove, and he loved coming over. And
he drove to you a couple times. Yeah.
Oh yeah, he drove all the time. He drove.
That's putting in the effort. So if you're on TikTok right now, we're talking about long distance relationships. Do they work, right? And I think the answer is it depends, right? But what does it depend on? So we got to figure out what it depends on. And Cece, the Doyenne of relationships, has basically said she don't want it if it don't come with a kiss. So you got to be close to Cece to be able to earn her affection.
And now, I have the best lips in town.
Well, what does Shariva say? I've tried to build.
I read that one. I tried to build a connection long distance. It's kind of hard because it's not like let me bring it down. We've got several here from Graham. He said, I learned from being away that I had to first find myself truly.
I think to Shariva's point too. It sounds like she said she was putting someone else first. Is that how I read that?
She said, "I have tried to build a connection long distance, and I have before, but for myself, I wanted the physical connection, and I felt it was hard to communicate how alone." See, she felt lonely.
Yeah.
How alone I felt, and that is a big thing when you are distant, because you've given yourself to someone else.
Right.
You promised, right, and you've made that you're going to be exclusive. So then you're like alone, unless you've got a lot of girlfriends, or especially the guys. I don't know how they do it, if they hang with the guys or whatever. But that's going to cause problems.
Oh, for sure. Well, maybe, so there's a lot of ways that works, right? So number one, and then we have to talk about it.
Hey, look, we got a new guy here. Hey, Bruce.
That's my buddy Bruce.
Hey, buddy Bruce. How you doing? From Vegas.
Bruce is one of the top nominated marijuana growers in Vegas, but I know him.
Oh, Mr. Happy Man.
Yeah, he's very happy. I know Bruce from, hey, what's up, Linus? I know Bruce from years ago. We went to college together, actually. We were on, Bruce would be a great person to have a show. He and I were on the radio for years together.
Yeah, come on board, Bruce. We'd love to have you.
He was the original Captain Morgan.
Graham's got a lot of them going here. So let's see. In June 2001, I formed a long-distance connection and ended up marrying January 2002 when I came to the United States. Yeah. Okay. These U.S. girls, you know how they are.
Yeah, these U.S. girls. My buddy owns a website called datebritishguys.com. We should get him to sponsor one of these shows.
Yeah, we should. I'm
going to stop plugging it because you know what? Ben, you got to spend some money. So a couple of folks asked too, before we get to Graham's question, or comment, are they on the rise? And long distance relationships, so that you understand too, are on the rise for two reasons. Number one is the internet, just simple and plain, the internet. I actually have a theory that I want to test out at some point, that our gene pool is going to drastically change. I don't know if it's going to get positive or negative, but when you're mating and making children, when you're making those babies, you originally had a much smaller cohort of folks to hang out with, because we weren't traveling as much. Now we might have a much more diverse population because people are meeting each other from the internet. So that's number one. But the second thing,
like the baby boomers, right? Like the baby boomers, yeah.
Well, and there's a more cryptic, there's even a more dark way to think about it too. The way I also think about it is look, there's a butt for every seat. But back in the day, right, we had folks who were not getting married, they were not procreating, they were not having children, and it's because they were not acceptable by the other sex, right? They weren't wanted or whatever. Now those folks are finding each other. So, who knows? And typically, me being like, I grew up a chubby nerd, I'll stereotype for a second. I was, kind of I don't know. I met my spouse in college, but had I stayed in my same small town, I might not have found that person because I was like this kind of dork. You know what I mean? So now I'm excited to make some really intelligent babies, but I wouldn't have had that opportunity unless I had some long distance relationships. But that's number one is the internet. Number two is college. The amount of folks going off to university and then going back to their hometown, wherever that may be, they are finding themselves in long distance relationships. So it is happening way more than it used to, even 10, 20, 30 years ago, for sure. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Cece.
No, it's okay. Bruce has got some here. He said, long distance romantic relationships are not worth the effort. Long distance business relationships are worth the effort. Design a great life.
Yeah.
So
and then
I guess you could start out as business and move it.
Yeah, there you go. And then Shariva says, it depends on what you need. What is your love language? You need physical touch. And so I want to comment on that because I thought I saw you were talking about you were talking about, and I'm blushing because her next comment, she says, chubby nerd, from the photos you have posted, you were very attractive. I appreciate that. Thank you. You are very attractive right now. So what I would say is this. I would say that, as somebody who's been in long distance relationships, I'm currently in a long distance relationship. It depends on how often you see your partner, but at the same time, you were talking about physical touch, and Cece, you talked a bit about hanging out with the guys, the girls. Now you have to decide if you're going to be monogamous or non-monogamous. That's an important conversation to have, right? If you're not monogamous, then it really doesn't matter because you could find at least some stuff elsewhere. Even if you are kind of monogamous, you may have like a thing with your partner that says, you know what, go have your fun. But let's talk about monogamy for a second, right? You talk about hanging out with the guys, hanging out with the girls. The way I approach it is when I'm not with my partner, right? That is my time to focus on work, on personal stuff, on my guys, on my fraternity, on my dudes, on even my girlfriends who are not girlfriends, you know what I'm saying? Like friends who are women, right? And then when they're in town or when I'm in town, it's like, that's it. Like we immerse ourselves in each other and it's great. We get all that physical out of the way and we're exhausted. And then we can do a Zoom call or something to talk about stuff later, But the segregation and separation of those activities does, I think, create a challenge. What do you think, Cece?
Yeah, I think so, because in any relationship, it's building, right? It's
Yeah.
You're always building a relationship. And when one part it is dormant, the physical part of it, because you're separated, that hurts your relationship. So it's not saying that you can't still be successful. It's just that you have to go about it in a different way. And I think you have to go by it in a mindful way, right? And I remember when we were separated and he, like we weren't going to be exclusive because he's over there, I'm over here, that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
But I wasn't really interested in seeing anybody. And then he started seeing, some women. He said he wasn't, but their name was, he was appearing. He would say, I'm with such and such, I'm with such and such. And I'm thinking, oh, I don't know, this isn't sounding too good.
Right.
And so then I thought, okay, fine. What did it say? Good for the goose, good for the gander, or whatever that saying is. So I thought, okay, I'm going to go out too. So I started going out, and boy, that was the end of that. He didn't. So when he realized that I'm going to start going out, he said, okay, let's be exclusive.
All of a sudden, he decides to be exclusive when she starts going out. On that note, if you're watching on TikTok, love you, but I have to go. You can check us out on Shorby. Just find the rest of the show. It's on Facebook and on YouTube. You can go on WGSN-DB, Going Solo Network Radio, right on Facebook or on YouTube. Find us and just search for Do Long Distance Relationships Work, and you'll see it. So I appreciate all the TikTok comments, but we'll let you find us on my links. Bye, everyone. Let's see. How do I end this? But yeah, I agree with you, Cece. And the other part of it too is, when we think about that, people start to, maybe he's showing up and not being exclusive. How do you feel about that? Is that a privilege that you would allow a long distance partner if they had that physical need to find physical touch?
I wouldn't. I mean, to me, I'm old school. And so I want, a straight relationship. I know you're more open-minded with regards to things like that, but I'm really not. I mean, I want my guy to be my guy, and I want to be exclusive with him. And so I just feel like it's really, really hard because it's easier to grow apart from each other because you start having you have different interests. You're not participating in together. You're not intimate together. So you've got all of the elements for disaster on a long distance relationship. But that still doesn't mean that if you're conscious and mindful that you could make it work, but you have to be conscious and mindful. That's all.
No, I agree. And I'm gonna take another spin on this because I'll give you a great example and then I'll jump into what I think about, right? I have a great friend. We actually dated for a minute. She's one of my best friends. We're in a similar industry, so we always talk about industry stuff too. Her parents were long distance, a couple hours of drive away, maybe 6-7 hour drive, and they had the best relationship for over 15 years. Then their jobs put them in the same city, and they were able to move in together. They lasted a year.
Yeah, because there is something for that freedom. Now, I will say that my ex, when we finally did get together, he traveled a lot for business. Yeah. So that was great. But then when he stopped traveling, it was hard. And, our relationship was hard because we had to live with each other all the time. And so that was difficult. Yeah. So having that little bit of freedom is great. And I think it's also kind of fun if they're a little bit away and you go stay at their house for the weekend and they come to your house for the weekend and you have that little space during the week because you work hard and you're okay with it. That's different than someone living in another country and not being able to get to them. So that's what I consider like really long distance. But so that's a little fun. And I know that Paul, he would come over and he liked being over here and I have a golf course right here. And so he played golf and he used to always say all the time that he loved it because he didn't have to do anything, didn't have to clean. And he took me out to dinner because I'm not much of a cook. So it had its points.
Here's what I'll say about that, though, and I think you've got
we've got some here, other ones you might want to comment. I got some of them.
What if you're a monogamous and you get feelings for someone who's polyamorous or not monogamous? Long distance become I'm not sure. Maybe
becomes to feel suited to fit one person in a relationship and not
so maybe
the other.
Feel suited to fit one. Well, so Sharifa, I'll comment on that. Here's what I think. Right. Well, first of all, you're talking about two very different concepts, right? Monogamy and polyamory versus long distance relationships. There, while I think both are generational. So I'm going to do a podcast soon that I think it's going to be called The Future of Dating. And my stance is, and Cece, I'm sure you'll disagree, but I think the future of dating with the generations, mine and below, really more below me, are going to be more ethical non-monogamy and more long distance for a couple of reasons. Mm-hmm. Number one is I think that we all have ADHD, and so we can't focus, number one. Number two, commitment is really hard for this generation, especially given all of our options and technology. Number three, given the amount of people that we interact with online, we can meet people online. But to comment on Sharifa's point, two very different concepts, monogamy and long distance. Now, I personally think that a long distance relationship actually is better suited when you are not monogamous because you've got the freedom to maybe explore a little bit and your partner doesn't have to see it. But it may also fit anybody who just kind of needs their personal space. And again, I'll use myself as an example. Cece, you can pick on me a little bit if you need. But when I'm working Monday through Thursday, Monday through Friday, this wasn't always me. But now I work about 14, 15 hours a week or a day because I've got so many little hustles that I'm working on. It would be really challenging for me to come home to somebody and give them my energy. And that's selfish of me, and I need to work on that. But when I do get to see my partner on the weekends, it's like, oh, this is great. Now, the problem with even that is, and like you mentioned, now you've got a host for the whole weekend. So how did you find hosting for the weekend? Was that a challenge?
Sometimes it seemed a little bit, but I'm more comfortable in my own house, my own surroundings.
Right.
So I'm okay with that. I'm okay. I would prefer actually the guy to come to my place.
Right.
So,
yeah.
But if he thinks I'm going to cook all the time and clean and all, forget it. I'm not going to be doing that. But Paul was great because he would take me out to eat. So that was great. We would go out to dinner or whatever. So we would do stuff. So that was okay. Now, I did date someone who wasn't that far away, but I would go to he liked me to go to his house all the time. So I would go to his house, but I never felt that comfortable. And, not that he didn't try to make me feel comfortable. I just, I just kind of like I like my space. Yeah.
Yeah. So I know Kimmy says Cece's making such good points.
Oh yeah. We'll put that one up because we'll make sure.
You like that. Yeah. You like when
Thank you, Kimmy. Yeah. Thank you.
Personal space helps, but only when you are not completely open with your partner. I don't know about that. Let's talk about that for a second.
Okay, let's go back there. Personal space helps only when you are not completely open with your partner. I wonder what he means by open.
Yeah, because
let's go on and read some more. He's got several here. This one here, long distance make you think clearer in what makes you happy for your partner, if that is your intent. And then let's see what this one.
He says our lips are not working properly.
Oh, what's this? Heck of a time lapse in your speech to lip movements, guys. Or
it would be my internet connection, to be honest.
Our mouth are not going.
Yeah.
Could it be my mouth is going 100 miles an hour?
Yeah. That close by. I don't know, Graham. I don't know that I agree, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
I'm completely transparent, 1,000% transparent in my relationship, and the reason that I am is because as a man, here's what I think. I think that, well, my history. You know that. People say these things and blah, blah, blah about me, whatever. I have a complex life, and I have 2 jobs. I have businesses. I have great ambitions. It's challenging enough to figure out what's going on in my brain. You shouldn't be thinking about if I'm thinking about another person, right? So I will literally look at somebody and go, wow, she's attractive. Because first of all, I typically date folks who are also on the spectrum of queerness, right? So they might say, oh, they're attractive too, and then we could talk about it. But moreover than that, I want you to know that what's going on in my brain is the worst, right? What you hear from me is the worst that's going on in my brain. I don't want you to have to second guess anything. So I am very transparent whether I'm whether I'm short distance or long distance. I don't know if that's the answer, but it's my answer because I want my partner to have no secrets from me. So I don't know that I agree that long distance makes it easier to. It does make it easier to hide your lifestyle, but I don't think that would be. I think you'd create more problems than not. I think your partner would see that and feel that and be really not cool with it.
Right. They'd be out of it. Yeah. What I was thinking when you were talking about that is I was thinking when it is a long distance, you really do have to, if you care about your other partner, you have to do what it takes to make them feel secure. Right.
Yeah.
And so letting them know what you're doing, things like that. That's what the key is really. If you think you can go ahead and just live your life and be in a bubble and think it's going to work, it's not, because then the other partner's they're going to feel uncomfortable with that. Or you're not really building a relationship. You could do that. You could live in your own bubble, have your own life. She could live in her own bubble, have her own life, and you just come together and be intimate. But that's not a relationship.
No.
That's a hookup.
Right.
And so if you're trying to build something, you have to work at it. And the key to building something, if you care about your partner, is to make them feel safe and secure in the relationship.
Yeah. I see Sharif has got a comment. I think that's a really good one. There's an article I sent to you, Cece. I just want to bring up a few things that I think is important because you just exactly what you're saying about communication. It's 21 ways to make your relationship, long distance relationship work. I'm not going to read them all, but I thought these couple really matched well. Number 1, try to communicate regularly and creatively. Number 2, talk dirty with each other. Well, I'm reading these out of sync. And then number 3, avoid excessive communication. So I think those 3 are like paramount. I think communicating regularly, but not sitting on the phone. Like I've been with my partner where it's like, hey, what's going on? Nothing. What's going on? All right, get off the phone. You know what I mean? Like, I'll talk to you when I have something to say. And then number 3 is I think talking dirty is actually a valuable part of a long distance relationship. Now with Zoom and stuff, I mean, we don't even have to talk dirty. We could be dirty. But I think that's valuable because I think that that intimacy that you've mentioned and that Sharif has mentioned, I think can come about when you can do some dirty stuff.
Yeah, and it's not really like dirty. It's that connecting with your partner. You're connecting in a different level, right?
Yeah.
And you do have to do that. You want to keep it fresh and you want to keep it alive. And so, yeah, you have to do certain things. We have this one here.
Oh, sure. Do you want to read it?
You want to read? I can read it.
Sure.
I don't want someone to host me. I want to feel at home when I'm with you, regardless of where we're at, I guess. Let's play board games, watch movies, cook, and clean together. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's great. So there's
Nana's got a really long one.
I see that. Yeah, let me answer Shariva first. I think 2 things. You're absolutely right, 1,000%. Yeah. And that's a struggle with long distance relationships. And I struggle with that in my relationship as well. It's like, okay, we only get to see each other so often, and at the same time, so let's do this. Let's do the museum. Let's do a show. Let's do dinners. Okay, totally great, awesome. Let's do a little bit of that. But then it's like, are you really dating, or is it a show that you're putting on, right? And number 2 is that gets expensive. Like, I am personally trying to save so I could stack and buy some property here in Vegas, so that gets expensive. But number 2 is I do think a little. So yes, the board games, the movies, the cooking, cleaning, yes, but I do think that planning a little something special when you get to see each other is of value, so that you remind that person, look, it's all about how someone's going to make you feel. If you get to my home on a Friday, and say it's a weekend, we're going to spend Friday through Sunday, you get to my home and I'm in sweatpants and I'm like, yeah, come on in, open the door. There's a lot of buildup there. I think it should be a bit of an event. Like, I want to be dressed up, even if I'm wearing sweats, my nicest t-shirt. I want to smell good. I want to be groomed. I want to embrace you. I want to give you my time and attention. What are your thoughts, Cece?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the more special you can make it, it's building those memories together, right? And so when you're doing that, it's not about like how much money you spend or maybe even what you do. It's about making the person feel special when you're with them. Yes. So it's important. And and he used to like bring me little gifts and do things, even though that's not my love language, but it's the thought. Yes. that truly was thinking of me, not only then at the moment of being together, but thinking of me during the week when he purchased that. So it was, to me, it's all about really quality time. That's my love language, quality, being with me one-on, and then also, making me feel like you're really in it, that type of thing. So let's read this one. This one's going, this covers us all up. We're here.
Yeah. Hi. Here. You want to read this one?
I can. I think also, if you're open about all aspects and expectations, it gives both partners the opportunity to choose if it's for them. I learned more about monogamous. My partner is poly, but I agreed to that when I agreed to the long distance relationship. That's who they are, and I care for them as a whole person. That's not something I'm comfortable asking them to change to be with me. If I'm not okay with it, I choose to not be in that relationship. That's very wise.
Yes, for sure.
Very wise.
I've had that conversation with folks because I've been in and out. I've done open, I've done poly, I've done monogamy, and people have said, and I've done long distance relationships. If somebody says to me, look, I want to be in an open relationship, and somebody says, well, I want to date you, but I don't want to do that. Well, then you don't want to date me, because that's who I am, right?
You don't want to change the person.
Right. Or I want to date you. For example, I am a workaholic. My passion projects take up a lot of my time. Well, I want to date you, but you're too busy. No. Then you don't want to date me, because I'm going to make the effort to see you. But if you want to date me as the whole person, as Mana says, then you've got to be okay with the fact that you are dating this whole person, right? Same thing with your husband traveling for their job. That's one of my favorite quirks that I think about. It's such an interesting dichotomy of, and this, stereotypically, I don't know if this happens very often, but I see it more women to men, where women say, well, I want to date this guy. I want to be with this guy, but the relationship's not working because he's never home. Well, is he working a lot? And is there a financial burden off of your shoulders because he makes a lot of money? Well, then you have to decide if it's okay to live the lifestyle you're living, but not see that person, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm going to sound like a boomer in saying this. I'm going to sound a little bit chauvinistic, and I apologize, but it is a real issue because so many of the folks that I've been in relationships with or have tried to be in a relationship with me have said, I would love to get to know you, but you're too busy for me. And my answer to that is, unfortunately, I put a lot of my money into my businesses, so I didn't always have it, but I made a lot of money in my life. And I'm not saying that money is the root of everything, but if you want to, if I could take you out to dinner and I could take you on vacation, guess where that comes from? I traveled 25 to 35 weeks a year to make that money. So we can stay home and I could find another job, but I'm not going to be able to do the great things that I can do for you. So
I think for me, it's really what you do when you come home, right? Now, my partner, my husband, when we were together, when he traveled, like if he was gone, he would be gone sometimes, 3-4 weeks at a time. He'd be gone a long time. So right. When he would come back, of course, I had children, right? And so when he would come back home, I would get a babysitter and we'd get a hotel room.
Right.
And yeah. we would do these really fun things like that. So we had that quality time together, and that made me feel special because he couldn't wait, to be able to get back, and I couldn't wait to be with him. And so it was those kind of things that happened. But when he was home all the time, that stuff stopped.
Right. Oh, yeah, because
and so making you feel like you're special. He went out of his way because he couldn't wait to see me, right? But then when he was with me all the time, it's like, okay, well, I'll see her later. Catch you at 6, that kind of thing. And it kind of got, and that's just the way relationships are. But I will tell you that when he was traveling and stuff, even though he was away and I missed him, we always had a call every night, not the check-in call, because when we started doing the check-in call, that's when we started having trouble in our relationship. And the check-in call is when he calls early, okay, before he goes out, and then he just talks for like a couple minutes about stupid stuff.
And
right?
What do you think that check-in call is about? What are your thoughts?
So that I had my evening phone call, and so that he could go out and he'd be out late or whatever.
Do you think that check-in? So here's my theory on the check-in call, if I may, and then I know you've got some questions here. Don't forget, you got to put Kimmy up there saying I'm right too, because you only put them up when they say you're right.
I was hoping you wouldn't see that. There you go.
Thank you. So the check-in call to me is interesting, and it's literally one of the things on this 21 ways to make your long distance relationship work is avoid dangerous situations. What they say is going out to the club late, and that might displease your partner, and that to me isn't dangerous. To me, what I think is dangerous is like actually putting yourself in danger, and I wouldn't want that at all. But the check-in call is notoriously correlated with cheating, because I'm going to check in with you at around 7 p.m. My date's at 8, and I'm going to sleep, and you're left thinking for hours what's going on with me that night, right? So that's number one. Number two, so my ex used to do that. My ex used to give me the check-in call. It used to make me so anxious. She got along with a lot of men. Here's what she used to do, which killed me. When we would always get into a fight, and it was never about her going out, it was just about something else. I would call her that night to try to resolve. She'd be out, and she would put the phone on the bar, and I'd have to listen to men hitting on her. And that was disgusting. Now, this, by the way, this woman was on social media saying I was a jerk. And I'm like, you have got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
It's just terrible.
That's bad. We have a lot here. And everyone, I'm really sorry. Here's Arthur. This is a new one here. They don't work. I'm not sure what we were talking about.
I think he just means long distance.
Oh, you mean the long distance relationship?
Yeah.
Don't work right. That's good. Okay. Building something means being transparent. I agree with Christopher. Wait a minute. Don't be doing this. I agree, Christopher stuff. Planning something special is great. Let's go out to eat, but I want to come home after walk around naked and make you snacks.
Is that an offer? I don't understand. You're making me those
okay,
are two
I'm not putting up any more if you guys say he's right either. That's like we're moving on with this. I still do those sort of things because I want to stay happy, which makes my wife happier. Oh,
absolutely.
I know it. That's so sweet. Oh, LOL, Kimmy. Let's see. Manna, clap, clap. I agree. Very good. I'm glad you guys are getting along with each other here.
Yeah. Bye, Chris.
Oh, bye, Chris. LOL. He's
so. He says he
does
thinks
that mean Graham, you're on my side?
Yeah.
Hey, Cece, I think Chris is.
I don't know. Leaving? I don't get it. Maybe because I made a good point. I don't know. One for me.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about.
We've also got a couple. We've got a couple of comments here on the Facebook group that I posted to. Kimmy says, I have no experience with this, but I think if I were to start a relationship and then something came up to where one had to relocate, I feel that would be easier than starting it. Yeah, very true. Could go that way. Kitty says I believe it can if both parties want it and actually try to make it work. Sure. Then Ashley says, so if going into the relationship, one of the parties is fully on board with relocation, yes. It also depends on the partners entirely and their respective love languages. I agree with that. I think I do somewhat agree with Ashley to that point. If one partner is willing to relocate at some point, then I think it makes a lot easier. So let's say, Cece, if it were you and I, and you said, you know what, I'm not really married to Florida. I can move to Vegas. I'm retired, or your job is remote or whatever. Then I think that makes it a lot easier because at least there's an end in sight. I think a long distance relationship permanently may be a challenge. What do you think?
Yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree with that. I think there was a time when for us, you know, we said, I'm the one said we have to break it off because I can't keep doing this forever. Yeah. You know, I mean, my life is slipping away and I'm being exclusive to you and I'm not seeing you. And so, and he showed up that he got on a plane and came immediately to talk to me because we were breaking up. Okay. And that's when he said he was getting a transfer to come over to Chicago. So I think he had already been thinking about it. And so he came over, but you know, it also, I wanted to say something about being in an older, like the last quarter of your life, being in an older relationship, you don't have a lot of time to waste, you know, with stupid stuff. Right. Yeah. And so you want to be together because you don't know when the end's going to come or when you're going to be sick and you're not going to be, and that's with everybody, I guess, at any age. But when you're older, it's more in your mind. It's more in the forefront of your mind as to, you know, how many years do you have together? And so you don't want to waste those not being able to communicate and not being able to be together. So I think for that, you know, again, for long distance wouldn't work for me unless you know, he's willing to relocate here, or again, maybe I'm willing to relocate. It's something that, you know, it's going to have to happen pretty quickly. The relationship is going to have to move fast.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And with that, I know you like to end a couple minutes late. What do you think? Do we have any more time to chat, or should we call it a night?
Yeah, we probably do need to leave. Let's see what'd she say here. Don't check in with me if you don't trust me.
100%. I'll say this, with a long distance relationship or any relationship, the only time I ever, if you want to say check in, here's what I've said to any partner I've ever had. I don't care if it's monogamous, if it's poly, if it's long distance, if it's short distance, if we're literally anchored at the hip. I say, look, even if you've disrespected our relationship, maybe you've broken a cardinal rule in our relationship, you've cheated, or we're in an open relationship and you've done something to break that relationship. I don't care what you've done. You must keep yourself safe. If you are in an unsafe situation, and even if there's some sort of, you were literally at the divorce attorney and you got mugged in the alley of the divorce attorney, I don't care. You must tell me what happened so that I can keep you safe, so that I can get to you and get you home safe. That's my only thing. So
now, see, that's a guy thing, because a guy wants to keep his woman safe. He's always thinking about their safety. Women, we don't think about it as much for men. We don't think about keeping you safe. We think about keeping you happy, you know, keeping you.
The only time I've ever felt time I've ever truly, I mean, I've been in fights before, but the only time I ever felt threatened, like almost like sexually or romantically, is unfortunately I've been in two gay bars. I've been in a few gay bars. I mean, I get along. I have a lot of friends who are on the queer spectrum, but I was in two gay bars in my life where I met two very aggressive gay men, and those were the only times that I kind of felt like, all right, I gotta fight my way out of this thing, because they were pretty aggressive. So there's never no partner would ever need to worry about me in that regard, but they would need to worry about me like back in my 20s getting into bar fights, because I used to go to work on Mondays covered in bruises because we would fight a lot at the bars. But that's another story for another show. Long distance when your mom brings its own challenges. I agree with that. And I would say not only does it bring its own challenges, it brings its own set of rules, because what part of your children's life do you want this person to be? Do you want them to be active? Do you only want them to be active when they're there? Do you want them to Zoom call? Like, that's, I think, a totally different set of rules that you need to structure with your partner.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, especially in your beginning of the relationship, because you don't really want to expose your children to that. Also, if you're thinking about maybe relocation, it's going to freak your kids out a little bit, thinking they may have to move, give up their friends, all of those kind of things. And what if he or she doesn't want to move to be closer to you, and you've got your children, that you've got to worry about. So there's a lot of elements there in which to think about. So a long distance relationship is not easy, and it can be successful, and it can be very rewarding to be together, that you made it work even through some of the toughest times, but it is work. It's definitely work.
For sure.
So,
on that note, I think, Cece, we need a break, because I've got my next show, and you got to be on the ones and twos. I'm sure you need a water break. Yeah. So thank you for indulging my ideas tonight, and for debating with me, Cece.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. It was great having you. So I think we should talk about on the next show, we'll talk about that Married at First Sight. Has anybody been watching that Married at First Sight? No, so maybe we'll.
What is on? What's that on? Hulu, Netflix? What's that on?
I don't know.
All right, let's find out. I gotta watch that show. So
yeah. Well, you can get on one of the streaming stations. But yeah, it would be great. We're getting still more comments here. Thank you so much. I can't get down to them all, but thank you, and we love it when you comment. So thank you so much. All right, bye guys. We got to run. Bye.